morning, everybody. On behalf of those who are part of this huge APRESID network, this event is bringing together the main players of the agro. For those of us who are in the first time in Córdoba, we have 250 presentations in different rooms. In this room, in the CQ rooms, before starting, I want to thank those who have helped us to make this meeting possible. All the members who were part of the organizing team, the sponsors, the communication media that help us disseminate our message, and all the different programs of APRESID and the staff of APRESID and everything that help us to make this possible. Thank you for being with us, and thank you to Sustentología, Sustainability. This Sustentología conference is the result of a concern at the way the association has been working in the past few years. We believe that the basis for decision-making, the basis for new projects and for public policies have to be based on science, on scientific methods. That would be the input we use to state what things are true and which are not. Many problems are a result of the fact that the legislations or initiatives are not science-based, and so we suffer the consequences. Sustentología, sustainability, is consistent with the work we have been conducting in the past few years, everything based on science, and we are taking that to the field and through our regional groups, through the farms we are working with. Sustainability, Sustentología, is the merger of science that provides the input to technology and to agriculture. This is also the beginning of the first AgTech Congress. This is a public-private initiative which is sponsored by the Ministry of Production, the Foreign Trade Associations, the Grain Trade Board, CREA, and APRESID. So many people from the private and public sector are participating in this initiative. The contribution of APRESID is organizing or leading this first AgTech Congress, which will be held tomorrow, Thursday, in this same room. So you are welcome to contribute to this new proposal. I also want to thank not only the managing staff that participated in the organization of this conference, but also the whole association. I want to thank you for participating. So you are welcome to enjoy and to experience this Sustentología Congress. We thank Guadalupe Covington and Santiago Nocelli for making this presentation, this introduction of the Congress. We are going to start with the first panel, the title of which is Productivity, Society, and Environment, Agroecosystems and Sustainable Balance. We remind you to put off your cellular phones or set them to the silent mode. This presentation will be made by José Luis Tedesco, Hernández Arriba Serpa, and Jorge Adamoli. The moderator of this panel will be Sebastián Senesi. He's an agronomist, has a magister in agri-food of the University of Buenos Aires. He leads the master course with the majoring or with a specialization in agri-food, and he's responsible for the agribusiness program of the agronomy schools. He's a graduate from La Plata University. He has a postgraduate course in design and landscape and another postgraduate degree in food from the agronomy school. He's seed seed breeder in Nidera, and he also is a farmer. He's an advisor, a consultant, and he is a founder member of the Agronomist Association in Chacabuco. He is vice president of APRESID, associate director for the certification sector in APRESID, and he's president of the Chacabuco Regional Group. Alejandro Brown, he's president of Projungas. He's an ecologist. He has a 30-year experience in biodiversity and sustainable development in subtropical forest systems. In the past 15 years, he was engaged in translating the ecologic information into decision-making in the public and private sector for sustainability. Hernando Serpa is a graduate from the Catholic University of Córdoba. He has experience in technical work in sustainable development in Northwest Argentina and the American Chaco. In 2016, he was appointed Secretary of Sustainable Development in Jujuy. Since 2017, he's the Forest and Agriculture Development Director in the Ministry of Production. He's now devoted to the territorial management and distribution relating conservation areas with sustainable management. Jorge Adamoli is a graduate agronomist from the Buenos Aires University. He's has a postgraduate degree from the Montpellier University. He works in everything related to agriculture. He's a professor in the School of Exact Science in the Buenos Aires University. He is environmental consultant in Formosa and international organizations such as World Bank, AOS, and IICA, and he's also a consultant in private companies. So we will give the floor to the moderator, Sebastián Senesi. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. We don't have much time, so we will start right away to listen to the presentations. We have 3 presentations that are intended to provide input to the certification process in APRESID, certified agriculture. We will be able to see real cases. We will listen to 4 presentations that will show us what are the actions that have been taken regarding sustainable ecosystem. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. I want to thank the people from APRESID on behalf of Alejandro Perpetegui and José Luis. I will say hello individually to each of them because it's a lot of people we have met in the past months. Alejandro and Jorge are really 2 role models, are 2 important references for me. When I started to get engaged in sustainability, I read their papers and their opinions. It's an honor for me to share with them this panel. When José Luis invited me to participate in this panel, I asked him what am I expected to speak about, and he basically asked me to share with you the experience that we have in Jujuy regarding environmental issues. I wanted to make a short summary of what happens in Jujuy. It's a province located in the northern part of the country with diverse climates, cultures, and regions. I try to illustrate the different productive systems related to that geography. The take-home message. I divided my presentation in three parts. One related to production in Jujuy, specifically conservation. I want to share with you my personal experience. And finally, I wanted to give you a closing message that has to do with territorial management and environmental issues. When the government changed in 2015 in Jujuy, the province started to take the different opportunities that were already there. There was a change in the productive matrix. This means starting to conduct productive activities. For instance, lithium, which was managed as an extractive mining activity. Now it is conducted differently, the same as solar energy. The change in the productive matrix has to do with conventional productive systems and the possibility to introduce new systems, but developed in a sustainable manner, producing a lower impact to the environment. The province strategy follows the national strategy in a way. The policy that has been established by Jujuy, called Jujuy Verde, Green Jujuy, takes into account the different mechanisms available to mitigate climate change, and these are adjusted to the national strategy, which includes the Paris Agreement. There is an action plan regarding forest and climate change, are also a plan regarding native forests, and this is done together with the Ministry of Environment and the Ministry of Production. We are making up provincial program adapted to the national program, and we also introduced into the province a forest program for 2030. Under this program, we are funding provincial growers or provincial farmers. These agro-industry and environment came together for the first time after 40 years to change and design territory with the plan of forest management, integrated management of forests. They are also working together in a residue or waste management system and the 2030 forest plan. What I mean, really, I think that this is the way where the productive sector and the environmental sector go hand in hand. These are different items on which we are working with in the province. This slide, these are my own slides. I've been there, I've taken these photographs, and I only try to show the process I underwent. When I was graduated as an agronomist, I started working as an extensionist on tobacco, which is a crop in the province. Today, an extensive use of soil is done, but in those days we sort of abused, or too many agrochemicals products. After a couple of years, I didn't feel very comfortable indeed. In fact, so I went to work to La Lajita, Salta, in the western area with extensive crops, soybean, livestock. In 2006 to 2007, when the agricultural frontier was being expanded with soybean at $600, I participated in developing several farms. In the upper part of the slides, we worked ourselves in the fields, and I didn't feel very comfortable. You have to be in the Chaco woods with machines and listening to the branches cracking, and I didn't feel comfortable with that. So I continued to feel uncomfortable, and in the boom days of soybean, I tried to get away from that, and I went to Bolivia also, and I worked there as an agronomist, and I couldn't feel comfortable, so I decided to get away from there, and I started to work with other friends that are present here that are also agronomists, and we started to work in the northwest area, and I started to be concerned with environmental issues. So I switched from extractive agriculture and high-impact agriculture. I switched to the other end. This has to do with ideology in a way, because I started to think and to take care of forests and to be concerned with conservation. So I ended up working as an expert, as a technician in the environment secretary office in the province. In this picture was taken when I was myself supervising changes in the soil. I also was a member of a foundation that had to do with sustainability, with a sustainable approach. I've been the Secretary of Sustainable Development. In this picture, I was already Secretary of Sustainable Development. We were conducting an inspection, and we found that we found machines that were felling down trees. So they had a permit, but really they were not fully allowed to do that. So we interrupted that felling of trees. These pictures have been taken by me as well, so the places where I worked with, and I've been a farmer, and I partnered with other colleagues. But what I'm trying to say is that I was in the shoes of different people. I was an expert, I was a farmer, I was a consultant, technical consultant. I worked in the private sector and in the public sector. And in the public sector, I was Secretary of Environment, and now I'm also a public officer in forest production. So in that pendulum of going from one extreme to the other, I try to break a balance, to find a balance. I think that the only sector that can approach or can tackle things that have to do with sustainability and with the environment protection is the public sector. I feel that being a public officer in this productive sector, I'm able to do everything that I wanted to do when I was on the environmental side. I'm doing much more because have this sort of executive approach. We are doing things. In order to close, I skipped this slide, but the idea was to talk about territorial distribution. I think that we must overcome or go beyond the discussion of red, yellow, and green. I think that we should focus on territorial distribution from another point of view, from a higher point of view. We need to consider the integrated landscape management or strategic environmental assessment as new tools to tackle this problem of territorial distribution. We can produce, we can manage using an integrated system, a comprehensive system. This concept comes from United Nations, and it is intended to combine territorial distribution, identifying high-value areas, intensive production areas, and try to be present in the place. So go beyond the farm gate and be aware of a society that is part of that landscape as well. I just wanted to say that. And to think of a design of a territory which is designed in this way. This could include certification processes. I make a general summary. I use 3 colors. Red, yellow, and green represent the different shares for certification, and we have different mechanisms that include protecting the area, native forest management, and the integrated management of the landscape or protective landscapes, and also the active certification of these areas. 80% of this area, surface area, has potential certification. This includes strengthening the institutions and the processes. That would be the general scheme. But what I want to focus and I want to emphasize is that only the productive sector can drag or can push the other sectors. Only from the agro-industrial sector we will be able to come up with a process that provides us balance between social, environmental, and economic issues. In the Chaco area and in Jujuy or in Salta is sort of stagnated or has being lagged behind because of environmental issues. I think that we should go beyond each sector, each individual sector. And the message I want to give, and this is a question I pose to you. The question is what we want to leave for the future generation, for our children. I think that we have to be responsible not only for our own interests, but also the interest of other people, of other places, and of our points in time. We must do things that stay, that persist when we are no longer here. Thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you very much for being here. I'm Alejandro Brown. I'm president of the Prochungas Foundation. I want to thank APRESID for inviting me to. It is really a challenge for me to go beyond the sector we work with, in my case, the environmental sector, to share with other sectors of society or to get away from our comfort zone. We only speak with people that think the same things that we do. In this case, I was invited to share with the productive world. Environmental issues are closely related to the productive issues. I will make a brief presentation because we don't have much time. I want to bring up something that I've been thinking of for a while now, and this has to do with this traditional opposition in Argentina between unitary and federals. This centralized vision of Argentina compared to the people from inland, from the provinces. We have been always negotiating around this. We have a federal country, but the central government has an excess power, probably. I think that this controversy between unitary and federalists is still on. A quick glance, if you compare the quality of life in Argentina, in central provinces, capital city, Buenos Aires, Santa Fe, Córdoba, we have a percentage of unsatisfied basic needs of 7%. If we go to the north and to the greater northern area, this number goes up to 18%. So the provinces has 3 more times needs, unsatisfied needs, than the rest of the country. The same happens when you consider energy demand, because the central provinces consume 70% and the northern provinces not more than 10%. This positioning regarding quality of life, access to natural resources, generates intellectual issues and ideas, and is also related to nature protection. Central provinces have less than 7% of the territories under protection, and the provinces have 50% of protected lands. This means that the provinces are responsible for the environmental demand of the whole society. We adapt the protected surface of central provinces. We have 4.5 million hectares. If we consider similar provinces in size, Santa Cruz, Salta, and Chaco, we double that protected surface area. The biological diversity covenant has put basic number of 17% of protection. These provinces, San Juan, Corrientes, Misiones, Salta, and Jujuy, and the only provinces that meet that protection requirement provided for by this covenant, by this agreement for the different regions in each country. This adds up to 10.5 million protected hectares, and this represents 50% of the protected area in the country. The same happens if we consider this not from the political point of view, but rather from the eco-regional point of view. The regions that are best conserved or that have a highest protected percentage in Argentina are peripheral regions. The Patagonia 35%, Iberá 32%, Xunga 31%, the Puna and the high Andean area 21%, the Paraná rainforest 17%, the Pampas and the Espinal areas 0.6%. The short message I want to give to you, because the environmental demand in the media has been, the provinces have been shown in the media as the ones that cause this environmental overload, but really they are the ones that are protecting the demand, that they're taking care of the demand. This crops of sugar cane and citrus are responsible for protecting the environment in the northwest area in Argentina. So my closing message is that Argentina has to be considered as a whole. By the provinces, the inland provinces are the ones that bear the environmental burden in the country. That's why we need to consider how we position our productions in the future. Third.
Good morning. I'd like to thank Proceed. I've been in the Congresses for 21 years now, and it's an honor for me to be here with you today and to do this by myself as well. So we are in this Sustentology Congress, and I'll be talking about territorial organization, which is one of the tools, the basic tools of sustainability. As we all know, sustainability is a concept that requires three different pillars: the economic pillar, the social pillar, environmental pillar. Theoretical, these pillars should be equivalent, but we know is that there is a disparity, a huge disparity. Environmental and social pillars are very small relative to the economic and productive pillars. One of the main tasks of territorial organization is to achieve a balanced development among these three pillars. To understand some of the issues that lead us to take restrictive rules and encouragement rules, we'll have a look at urban areas. When we are driving, for example, a car, and we get to a corner and we want to move on, we find a traffic light, which is red, then we have to stop, we have to turn right, and that there is an arrow showing that we should turn left, we cannot turn. These restrictions that have to do with traffic rules, people do this based on common welfare, because if I move on, then I'll probably cause an accident or cause a traffic jam, and then I also run the risk of being questioned. All of the restrictions of these kinds are normal, and they are widely accepted in urban areas. For example, restrictions to height. I mean, there are certain areas in the city that allow to build high buildings. Other areas, for example, where only houses can be built, or maybe buildings that are 3-story high. All of this to keep the urban planning consistent. This is accepted in the urban area, but in the rural area, things are quite different. In general, having the state present is not considered nice at all times. For example, when people do not comply with the rules, for example, child labor or informal labor, cheap labor, or for example, in general, there's no explicit rejection on behalf of the sector, and there is no, the state is not requested to take part. had this beautiful picture on my presentation of these forests in the border between Chaco and Formosa provinces. We'll see that these kinds of environments is considered by different players. For example, farmers want to see that forest away in order to have their crops there, and that is quite right. And cattle raisers also. That is, everyone would like to get rid of the forest in order to develop their own business. But and then those that are involved in conservation, they want to conserve diversity, and the natives want to keep the forest but live in there. That is, everyone has their own right perspective. So, and a basic tool for territory organization is to actually reach consensus. That is, each of these sectors and other sectors have the right to, but they have to be flexible enough to understand that each sector should be successful. It should be a win-win situation. This is a state management tool. This doesn't mean it is arbitrary or authoritarian. On the contrary, it has to have the best scientific and technical information available. Otherwise, the different parties do their own thing. But this does not depend exclusively on one sector, because there are other factors that make that territory. But this also requires the participation, of the people. This level of this consensus that we mentioned before. All of these players have to agree and be integrated. This is the basis for democracy, and even though it takes a long time, this has, it provides more a better legal basis to the society. A better legal foundation. Well, you see, the picture is quite nice. This is what I said before. So in the case of Buenos Aires, there is an interesting case to look at, which is Diagonal Norte. In 1913, they decided to open Diagonal Norte, and they set tremendous restrictions. So here they set the maximum height of buildings, the different building features, the height of towers that have to be as high as the obelisk in order to keep consistency. So with so many restrictions, we would expect a monotonous landscape, but it was quite the contrary. Architects were able to develop interesting buildings and an interesting landscape. From the landscaping perspective, is quite amazing. So, even though Messi and Iniesta have not really been the artists in the last World Cup, but, well, in the different paper articles, news like this come up. I mean, and it's not mixed with the, the soccer stars. I feel very proud when I see these pictures, and this happens in the ACREA congresses and INTA congresses and APRESID. But there are many other things that I feel ashamed. I feel ashamed of. I feel really ashamed when I see these kind of situations. These fumigations, for example. I learned an important aspect or topic with you, which is good agricultural practices. These are fundamental, but these are insufficient because as we have to separate the different practices and disseminate them. Just look at the evolution of the agricultural border on the right. This is the southeast of Chaco province in Cerrata region, and the center and left, Quibilín, Sachay, in Santiago del Estero province in 1975. Now the same surface in 2010. So many of these farmers are excellent farmers. Now, what I think is concerning is the lack of planning that has led us to this scenario. I mean, this should have been done, but in a more organized way. Based on my experience, this is in the Formosa province, where we were able to agree on organizational objectives or targets, not only for forests, but at the different sectors, the different kinds of activities. And the objective is to achieve greater production, but complying with the standards, with the rules. Always keeping 90% of the forests, but also providing better social conditions and better environmental conditions. There was a picture, we won't go back, but this picture showed a program that is being developed in the highest degradation areas in the province of Formosa with small farmers, and we were able to recover by planting pastures and trees. And excuse me for the technical problems, but this would be the end of my presentation. Good morning, everyone. We'll finish with Sebastián Senesi. We didn't have enough time. We had some technical issues with the presentations, but we have this very, very short time to just tell you a little about some things. I will just talk about the role of certifications and sustainable production methods. Based on what Jorge said, on the sustainable certified standards that is followed by APRESID, which has been developed for 10 years now. All of these so let me just name them. Institutions such as CASAFE, the government of Buenos Aires, IRAM, INTA, the Ministry of Agriculture of the Nature Conservancy, and the Wildlife Foundation. That is, many institutions have participating government institutions, technical institutions, private institutions, certification institutions. These are the different institutions that have taken part in the standard review. The standards create consensus. That is, they put together all of the different viewpoints, perspectives, and provide a revision or a summary of the different needs. And from there, we get the standards, which, well, this is the ARAM standard, which is a huge development, different institutions that have participated. These are the different certifications. And these are the consensus on sustainable social practices, agricultural sustainable practices, environmental practices, and we get to we get a consensus of these sustainability pillars. The pillars and criteria of each of the criteria that are part of the standard consider all of the the international environmental standards. These are consensus regarding how to achieve sustainability of production. Um, um, just basically thank you, and we'll be with you along the Congress. Thank you very much.